Good afternoon. My name is Barbara Fuller. As Chair of the Board, I welcome you to this March 1st, 2022 regular meeting of the Washtenaw County Board of Road Commissioners. Our Communications Manager, Emily Kaiser, will now describe how our meetings operate, how to access the agenda packet, and how people may participate remotely. Emily.
Thanks, Commissioner. So there are multiple ways to make public comment during today's meeting, whether you're joining us in person or virtually. If you are here in person and would like to make public comment, please fill out the sign-in sheet now. If you're joining us virtually, we ask that you virtually raise your hand at the appropriate time in the agenda. If you're joining us virtually, the chat feature on this Zoom meeting is available, but only as technical support for users on their computer or smartphone. If you're experiencing technical issues with audio or video during the meeting, please submit a comment in the chat feature and I will help you troubleshoot. If you're a staff member experiencing issues, please contact the IT help desk for assistance. The audio and video of this meeting is being recorded. A link to the video recording will be posted to wcroads.org in the coming days. There are printed copies of today's meeting agenda on the table here, and it's also posted to wcroads.org. There's also a link available to the agenda in the chat if you're joining us virtually. Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you, Emily. I now call this meeting to order and ask Aaron to call the roll.
Chair Barb Fuller,
Present.
Vice Chair Rod Green,
Present.
Commissioner Doug Fuller,
Present.
Commissioner Gloria Yamas has an excused absence. Commissioner Joanne McCullum,
Present.
Managing Director Cheryl Siddle, Director of Engineering and County Highway Engineer Matt MacDonell,
Present.
Director of Operations Jim Harmon,
Present.
Director of Finance and IT Dan Ackerman.
Here.
Thank you, Aaron. I would now ask if you would please join us for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. May I have a motion to approve the agenda as presented?
Madam Chair, I motion that we approve the March 1st, 2022 agenda.
Support.
Thank you. Any changes, amendments, deletions, additions? Seeing none. Aaron, if you would please call the roll.
Commissioner Rod Green,
Yes.
Commissioner Doug Fuller,
Oh, yes.
Commissioner Joanne McCullum,
Yes,
and Commissioner Barb Fuller.
Yes. The agenda has been approved unanimously. Next, we need to accept two sets of minutes. May I have a motion to accept the board meeting minutes of February 15th, 2022, appearing on pages 3 through 13. As chair, I would note that there is a correction that needs to be made to those minutes. It appears on page 12 of the board packet. Third line from the bottom. Instead of Commissioner McCullum being named in that sentence, it should read, based upon initial review, Coy Vaughn, Director for Washtenaw County Parks and Recreation Commission, recommends that if the Washtenaw County Road Commission receives questions and so forth. So with that change, I would appreciate a motion to adopt them as amended.
So moved. Support.
Any other changes? Hearing none. Aaron, if you would please call the roll.
Commissioner Doug Fuller,
I'm hearing Barb Fuller and not Doug, so, yes.
sorry. Commissioner Joanne McCullum,
yes,
Commissioner Rod Green,
Yes.
and Commissioner Barb Fuller.
Yes. The minutes are approved unanimously. Next, may I have a motion to accept the working session minutes of February 15th, 2022 as presented, appearing on pages 14 through 16 of the packet.
Madam Chair, I move acceptance of the working session minutes of February 15, 2022 as presented.
support.
Thank you. Are there any changes, amendments, corrections? Hearing none. Aaron, if you would please call the roll.
Commissioner Joanne McCullum,
Yes,
Commissioner Doug Fuller,
Yes.
Commissioner Rod Green,
Yes.
and Commissioner Barb Fuller.
Yes, those minutes are approved unanimously. Next item on our agenda is public comment. This is the time set aside on the agenda to receive comments from the public. This is not intended to be a period for dialogue. Each person will be allotted 3 minutes to address the board. Emily, do we have anyone who wishes to address the board at this time?
Thanks, Commissioner. I'm going to give quick instructions as to how to do that. So since this is a hybrid meeting with both in-person and virtual attendees, we'll take turns between those attending in person and those attending virtually. So for virtual attendees, we ask that you virtually raise your hand now. If you're viewing the meeting on your computer, first make sure to click Join Audio. You can then raise your hand by clicking the Participants or Reactions button at the bottom of your screen, and then the Raised Hand button. If you dialed into the meeting from your touch-tone phone, you raise your hand by dialing *9. I'll unmute virtual participants with raised hands one at a time. I will announce your username or the last 4 digits of your phone number when it is your turn to speak. Please share your name and address before beginning your comments. For in-person attendees, we'll start with those who have signed up on the sign-in sheet as you walked in. If you didn't sign in, you're still welcome to make comment. I'll notify you when it's your turn. Each speaker will have 3 minutes to share their comments with the board. At this time, we don't have anybody with a raised hand.
Thank you. We will move on to written communications. They appear on pages 17 through 21 of the board packet. Commissioners, do you have anything you want to draw our attention to?
Just to mention that there seemed to be a lot of appreciation for the work that was done during the snowstorm, and that's always nice to hear.
Agreed. All right. If there is nothing further to point out on the written communications, we will move on. There were no public comments, so we will bypass the response by staff and commissioners. Next item is new business. We have a consent agenda. May I have a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented, items 1 through 7, appearing on pages 22 through 25 of the packet?
So moved.
Support.
Any discussion? Hearing none. Aaron, if you would please call the roll.
Commissioner Joanne McCullum,
Yes.
Commissioner Rod Green,
Yes.
Commissioner Doug Fuller,
If that was Doug Fuller, yes.
and Commissioner Barb Fuller.
Yes. The consent agenda has been approved unanimously. Reports, our next item on our agenda, where we would like to hear from our county commissioners. I see that Chair of the Board, Sue Schink, is present. Commissioner Schink, would you like to share any thoughts with us?
Thank you and good afternoon. I do want to also add to the thanks that you are receiving regarding the removal of snow. It doesn't look like we had a lot of snow recently, but we all know that we did. So thank you very much for the work that you've done. And then I also want to let you know that tomorrow night we have a working session meeting where we'll be looking at our budget at 5:30, and then we have a Board of Commissioners meeting beginning at 7. That is available virtually to watch and participate, as well as to attend in person if you wish to do so. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Is Commissioner Sanders with us, Emily? No. All right. Next on our agenda are commissioner reports. Commissioner McCullum.
Yes, on February 21st, I attended a presentation on Resilient Washtenaw program. This was a meeting at a neighborhood meeting in West Willow, and someone from Washtenaw County was reporting on this program. The Resilient Washtenaw is a climate planning process aimed at creating a roadmap for meeting rapidly approaching carbon neutrality goals. It was a very interesting meeting, and I will continue to look into ways that would help our environment. Thank you.
How many attendees would you estimate were there?
21.
Oh, well, that's quite the estimate, 21. All right, great. Commissioner Green,
Yes, on the 23rd of February, I had an opportunity to be with the chat session. We had one attendee and it went very well.
thank you. Commissioner Doug Fuller,
No report.
thank you. I will report that on February 16th, I was the road commissioner on call for the chat session. We had 2 visitors. Those conversations are always very enjoyable and very pleasant. And the people who call in seem to appreciate having that opportunity to talk at greater length with commissioners and staff. On February 23rd, I attended the Southwest Washtenaw Council of Governments meeting. It was lightly attended, but there was an update given by the new project manager of the Broadband Task Force, which was appreciated very much by those in attendance. On February 28th, which was last night, I attended the special meeting of the Sharon Township Planning Commission, where they took comments regarding the determination of need regarding Stoneco's application to mine aggregate on Pleasant Lake Road, where they have recently purchased some 400 acres for that purpose. We will move on to the managing director's report and that of her staff. Those reports begin on page 44 and run through page 53 of the board packet. Cheryl.
Thank you. Good afternoon. I would just like to start my report by saying thank you to my staff. What you see before you, both with respect to the meeting, the board packet, everything was assembled by the communications staff, working very closely, of course, with the directors on all the content that was put into that. I am very grateful to be able to go on vacation and still know that this organization can run and run smoothly. So lots of people stepped up in a variety of roles to cover in my absence, and I am forever grateful for the ability to have that break on my part and the additional effort that they all put in order to make that happen. So thank you to my staff for that. Prior to my departure, we did send out the township packets. I sent you an example of what that information looks like that each of the townships received. It is unique to their individual townships. Those are also posted on our website. If you want to see a specific township's information, I sent you, I think it was Ann Arbor Township, just as a reference point. I know Jim and his staff have been following up very closely since then, and I'm sure he'll touch on that as well as part of the township program that we're putting together for this year. So those seem to have been well received. We've received a couple of comments back that they appreciate the information. And again, hopefully that will result in township agreements and a robust local road program with our townships. The last thing that I'll just touch on briefly is that we did have mediation with respect to our union contract negotiations. Unfortunately, while there was additional dialogue that took place during that mediation, we did not reach a tentative agreement. So the next step is that we will be headed into fact finding. Michael Cluck, our labor counsel, will be here on March 15th at the working session to present to this board a more detailed update of where we're at and what the next steps are with respect to negotiations. So before I hand it over to staff, do you have any questions for me?
Help me understand the fact-finding step in this negotiation process.
As far as
What facts are in question? I don't know what that means.
Fact finding is the term for the next step in the negotiations, and that is where each party is collecting additional information. We will be presenting that information. Mike will actually be able to give a much better detailed explanation of exactly how that process works, the timelines that are associated with that. I don't want to get into too much information because I will quickly be in over my head.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. Any other questions? All right. Well, first up today is Dan Ackerman to give us an update on finance and IT. Dan?
Well, certainly I have to start with the boardroom technology, and all of you look great, you sound great. And is Chris in the room?
Yes, he is. Yes, he
Is
is.
he is? I just want to acknowledge Chris as the project lead. Just an outstanding job, just keeping us on track, on pace with everything. Great communicator. If the vendor needed to do something, if staff needed to do something, internal decisions that need to be made, whatever was needed. And this is the final product, and just really proud at how professional it looks. I know a lot of government entities, road commissions, school districts that said, okay, we're meeting in person, and they dropped the virtual component. And I try and find the good in any bad situation. And the pandemic, what it's taught us is having that virtual component is a service to the citizens. It allows for greater and better participation. And I think we are set up for that for years, which is awesome. Jim and I were talking, we've been around the block for a while. When we moved into this building many moons ago, certainly virtual meetings and pandemics were not on our mind, but certain enhancements were discussed as far as the boardroom, and nothing really happened. And again, kudos to Chris, Emily, staff, commissioners, just having the vision. And it's one thing to have the vision. Obviously, we need to make sure that we have the funds for that. And then just really seeing it to the finish line, and it's awesome. So, kudos to everybody involved. It looks great. And I know the finishing touches are being put on all the audiovisual upgrades for our assembly room. And I told Chris one problem with that. Some of the county road commissions, they may want to host more meetings at our agency, which is a good problem to have. So we'll see once that's up and running as well. And then finally, we had a meeting this morning with all of the Teams phone testers, and there's some great dialogue back and forth, some great suggestions, and overall people seem pretty pleased with it. And we're anxious to roll that out to the rest of the organization in the coming months. And as far as finance is concerned, we were able to provide a draft copy of our financials to Washtenaw County. As a component unit of Washtenaw County, they need our financial report for all of our numbers. So we were able to provide that to them actually a day early, which is great, and they were very appreciative of that. On April 19th, there will be a presentation from Plant Moran, our auditors, to the board at our working session. And also immediately following, we'll be talking about our first quarter budget adjustments for 2022. So that's usually one of my favorite working sessions of the year. So we're looking forward to that. And then the last thing, the 1095 Affordable Care Act tax forms were mailed to our entire workforce and our early retirees. So we were glad that we were able to get that to everybody so they can complete their taxes. And that's all I have, unless there's any questions.
I'd just like to also include Josh Summerhill in the compliments for all of this work that got done. I mean, it really is a team effort, and Josh has the patience of a saint, as does Chris. So thanks to all of you who answer our questions with patience and good humor and have made this transformation possible.
Yeah, thank you for bringing Josh up, Barb. Definitely with the Teams phone project, I had several questions for him. And like you said, he's extremely patient and always has an answer. So, he's always great to work with, and we appreciate all his efforts too.
Anything else? I think not. Okay.
All right. Well, thank you,
Okay,
Dan.
thank you.
Appreciate that. Next up, we have Jim to cover the operations department. As I said earlier, I know that they are actively talking to our townships to put together a local road program, and then Mother Nature continues to keep us busy on the winter maintenance front. So Jim, if you'd like to provide an update.
Thanks, Cheryl. Good afternoon, everyone. Find the operations department report beginning on page 45 of your booklet, ending on page 47. Happy to answer any questions about that information at this point. Very good. Yes, we have been very busy with winter. We're also dealing with mud season, and as things begin to thaw out. In fact, Matt imposed under his authority seasonal weight restrictions effective today. And that certainly is intended to protect our the vast majority of our road system from damage during this period of time. So we're adjusting to that with our operations. And as things freeze and thaw out, we're certainly in the midst of pothole season and deterioration of our unpaved road system. As a matter of fact, we created a double batch of cold patch today, approximately 800 tons of cold patch. It's a very large mountain at our main yard that'll be distributed to our satellite yards as well to replenish their stock. Much of that, I'm sad to report, is going to be used to hold the state trunk line system together under contract for MDOT. Sections of US 23 near Michigan Avenue, all the way up to the East Tri-Level, sections of 94 are in quite a state, and the cold patch will be an effective Band-Aid until the asphalt plants open, and hopefully MDOT can find a way to program more lasting investment in those interstate highways and US highways in our county. But that being said, staff are working diligently and safely to fill those holes and minimize those defects and hazards to the traveling public on the trunk line and on the county road system. We have performed winter maintenance 56 days. Winter really is amounting to, Dan and I talked about this recently, financially and from a resource perspective as an average winter. It's not uncommon to have a little more winter operations here the month of March and even in early April, but things will begin to wind down as the sun gets higher in the sky and spring arrives. One thing that we're looking at very closely, and this is largely due to ongoing conflict in Eastern Europe, is the volatility in the petroleum market and the impact on our diesel and gasoline and lubricating oils purchases. I share weekly the wholesale tax exempt unit prices for gasoline and diesel with senior leadership, and the board also post those on our digital billboards so the workforce can see that. And we're certainly seeing an inflation. We're all seeing it at the retail level for our own personal fueling needs, but definitely seeing it wholesale tax exempt inflation here for the road commission. So we'll continue to be monitoring that. And if an adjustment is needed in our fuel budget and our lubricating oils budget, we'll certainly be talking with Cheryl, Matt, and Dan and making any necessary recommendations to the board at first quarter budget review. So far, the budget is tolerating that volatility. And then finally, in response to Cheryl's introduction, staff has followed with the publication of the annual booklets that Cheryl mentioned with proposals to each of the townships. I think we have 3 townships remaining to send proposals to. In fact, Augusta Township has already approved the agreement and sent it back. So we intend to recommend approval to this board at its next meeting on March 15th. So we're very excited. We've got several $1 million in local and primary road investments before the townships at this point. And we believe this season is going to be quite robust. We're very enthusiastic and excited to partner once again with the townships to accomplish that important work. With that, I'd answer any questions the board may have.
Any questions?
I have one.
Please, Commissioner Doug Fuller.
Jim, when will we have a list or a map of the proposed chip seals for this year?
We have that now, and I'll certainly follow up with the board. I believe we provided that previously for the major road system. In terms of any seal coating and other improvements on the local system, that information probably will be compiled and shared in May, I'm expecting. But in terms of the seal coat program for the major system, we have that mapped and certainly can share that with you again.
It is also on our website too.
You're welcome.
Just
Thank you.
extend my compliments to everyone who was involved in the packets for the townships. The boilerplate components of those packets is wonderfully organized and clear. So well done on that point. They just seem very comprehensive, but easy to navigate, which is wonderful. I've also been asked, Jim, you already know this, by one township supervisor about the township annual meetings. Will they be, what's the format? Is it in person? Is it like it's been for the last 2 years? And then what about ARPA funds that have now been, road projects are now eligible as expenditures for the ARPA money? So 2 things, in person and ARPA.
With regard to any in-person meetings with the townships, we certainly are able to do that now. And it will vary. Some of the townships, as is the case with Augusta, was able to move forward and approve the agreement without a formal meeting to review that. And that's really a testament to staff, our foreman particularly, working throughout, the prior 12 months in preparation for this point in time. It's eliminated any surprises. They've collaborated effectively with the township officials, supervisor primarily, and in the development of these proposals. So really we're providing in most cases what the townships are hoping to accomplish and have based on their priorities. So in that case, meeting was unnecessary. In another case with Manchester Township, Supervisor Milkey had reached out to me last week and asked if we could, Rourke Freeman, our foreman, and I could join them at their meeting next Tuesday. And we said we'd be happy to. So they've carved out a small period of time for the board members to ask us any questions about the proposals that we've sent. We look forward to that meeting. So it'll be varied. A lot of this, Barb, is accomplished by emails and phone calls and really negotiating the agreement down to a final form that the supervisor can take to their board for consideration.
Thank you.
I think you had a second question, and I apologize.
ARPA money.
ARPA has come up. We all are learning about that is possible to invest those funds in road and bridges, which is great. All of us, Township, Road Commission, are still learning what the requirements are and how that would be invested in public road infrastructure. So I suspect that we'll all get up to speed over the next few months, and it's probably most likely those investments would apply to next year, that this year would be preparation, but it's still conceivable that some of that money could flow in 2022.
I just want to make sure they're aware of that change, as I think I mentioned to you. Some are staying on top of that federal infusion and others are like, we can't spend that on roads. I'm like, well, no, actually, there's been a change. So I appreciate that you're collaborating with them on how to best use that infusion that they're receiving.
Yes, ma'am.
Any other questions for Jim? All right, thank you, Jim.
You're welcome.
And last but not least, we have Matt MacDonell with engineering. And we know that he and his staff have been very active in trying to get this year's federal aid program underway. And I'm sure lots of work on next year's as well, given the timelines that we're working under these days. So Matt.
Good afternoon, commissioners. On the subject of ARPA, I will say that I saw a communication from SEMCOG today that was a pretty good article, and we can certainly forward that along to you folks and for review. It was a good description of that is an available source, but obviously the townships, that education process is occurring as we speak. So Jim had mentioned seasonal weight restrictions are in effect. Our permit staff are very busy in that regard. Our waymasters are doing commercial vehicle enforcement. Obviously, Mother Nature will do what it will with the freeze-thaw cycle, but we're putting that protection for those oversized and overweight loading and restricting those loads from taking place until things thaw out, dry out, and we lift those restrictions. Any questions on that topic? Okay. As Cheryl said, staff is working to do bidding not only for locally let projects, but also some of our larger federal aid projects through the Michigan Department of Transportation. And we are also starting planning for 2023 and further out even, just with all the things that we need to accomplish with environmental clearances, permitting. These are all things that take time. And with the amount of work that MDOT is bidding out, both themselves and at the local level, it is in our best interest to get things ready as soon as we can. So staff is working very hard and diligent on those. In fact, we do have some environmental restrictions coming up. We have to get the bulk of our tree removal done prior to March 31st. Some of our projects that's already occurred, and others we are planning to mark trees this week and meet with our contractors on site for tree removal in the coming weeks. So all that work typically needs to get done before March 31st. With that, I'll open it up to any questions on projects. I'll be sure and distribute our project map for 2022 again, both via email, and I'll bring down some hard copies as well before you leave today.
Any questions?
Okay.
for Matt?
All right.
Nope. No.
Thank you. Thank you, Matt. All right. Unless there's any further questions, that's it for the staff reports.
Thank you, Cheryl. I see no further questions.
Thank you.
At this time, I would entertain a motion to begin our scheduled closed session under Section 8E of the Open Meetings Act to consult with our attorney regarding the Lisa Johnson v. Washtenaw County Road Commission Board et al. Case number 22-000197-CH.
So moved.
Support.
Aaron, if you would please call the roll.
Commissioner Doug Fuller,
Yes.
Commissioner Joanne McCullum,
Yes.
Commissioner Rod Green,
Yes.
Commissioner Barb Fuller.
Yes. Emily, if you would explain now next steps.
Thanks, Commissioner. So for virtual participants, if you are not a road commissioner or a designated staff member, I'll now move you to the virtual waiting room. If you'd like to be returned to the open session of the meeting once we've completed the closed session, please remain in that virtual waiting room. I will readmit you once the closed session has been completed. For in-person attendees, please exit the boardroom unless you're a designated staff member or commissioner. You're welcome to wait in the lobby until the closed session has been completed. So give me 1 second here, commissioners.
Thank you. We have now returned to open session on this March 1st meeting of the Board of Road Commissioners. I would draw people's attention to the fact that our next meeting is on March 15th. We start at 9 a.m. with a working session and then at 1:00 p.m. with a regular board meeting. We have virtual chat sessions coming up every Wednesday from noon to 1. Tomorrow, Gloria Yamas, Commissioner, will be present on that call. And on March 15th, I will be staffing that chat session. Having no further business to come before this board, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Support.
Aaron, if you would please call the roll.
Commissioner Rod Green,
Yes.
Commissioner Doug Fuller,
Aye.
Commissioner Joanne McCullum,
Yes.
and Commissioner Barb Fuller.
Yes. We have unanimously moved to adjourn. This meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everyone. See you in a couple of weeks.
Thank you.